Former Iowa head coach Lisa Bluder had
This kid is going to be pretty amazing.
You think you know the story of Caitlin Clark. You've seen the logo threes, the no-look passes, the record books rewritten. You watched her become the face of a sport, a cultural tsunami that no one saw coming. But there's a story behind the story, a hidden truth about the most sensational talent women's basketball has ever known. And it comes from the one person who was with her every single step of the way, her coach, Lisa Bluder. For 4 years, Bluder had a front row seat to a phenomenon. But behind the sold-out arenas and the historic ratings was a challenge no coaching manual could ever prepare her for. It wasn't about harnessing Clark's talent. It was about protecting her from the immense weight of that talent itself. This is the untold story of a partnership that walked a razor's edge between genius and burnout, and how a legendary coach discovered that sometimes the only way to coach an uncoachable player is to stop coaching them altogether. Before we dive into the tension, the breakthroughs, and the moments that nearly broke them both, make sure you hit that subscribe button. This isn't just a highlight reel. It's a deep dive into the psychology of greatness, and you won't want to miss what comes next. The relationship between Lisa Bluder and Caitlin Clark didn't start with promises of stardom. It started, ironically, with a spotlight on failure. While other coaches wooed the high school phenom by praising her unlimited range and flashy playmaking, Bluder took a radically different approach. She focused on Clark's weaknesses. Bluder's philosophy was simple. Elite performers already know their strengths. The path to true growth is paved with uncomfortable truths. She sat down with Clark and her family and didn't just sell a dream. She sold a process. She pointed to players like Megan Gustafson, who arrived at Iowa unheralded and left as the National Player of the Year, as proof of her program's developmental power. The message was clear. You're incredible, but you're not a finished product. And I'm the one who can help you finish it. This wasn't just strategy. It was a perfect match of personalities. Bluder needed a player who was confident but coachable, hungry for criticism, not allergic to it. In the young, fiercely competitive Clark, she found exactly that. But Bluder's honesty went beyond generalities. In private film sessions, she broke down tape that other coaches avoided. She showed Clark where her spectacular passes were actually reckless turnovers waiting to happen at the collegiate level. She pointed out defensive lapses, moments where her effort off the ball didn't match her intensity on it. While others sold visions of immediate stardom, Bluder sold the gritty, unglamorous work of deconstruction and rebuilding. She famously told Clark, "Anyone can tell you how good you are. I'm going to tell you how to be great, and it's going to hurt." This approach forged an unbreakable bond of trust. It established that Bluder's voice would be one of constructive truth, not empty flattery. It signaled that Iowa was a place where greatness was expected, but growth was mandatory. Little did they both know, however, that this commitment to growth would soon be tested in ways neither could have imagined. Because the player who arrived on campus wasn't just a talented recruit. She was a force of nature waiting to be unleashed, and learning to control that force would become Bluder's greatest challenge. This foundational pact, to prioritize painful truth over easy praise, became the lifeline they would both cling to when the pressure reached its peak. Caitlin Clark's talent was immediately obvious. The deep threes, the visionary passes, it was all there from her first game. But with that transcendent talent came a set of problems that threatened to tear the team apart from the inside. This was the first iteration of the Caitlin Clark problem, and it had nothing to do with opposing defenses. The issue was internal. Clark had spent her entire life as the show. She was used to carrying teams on her back, to having the offense run entirely through her instincts. At the elite college level, Bluder knew that couldn't fly. She could do it by herself, Bluder recalled. But when you get to a Power 4 conference, you realize, oh, I can't do this all by myself. The problem was Clark's intensity and sheer dominance were overwhelming. Her on-court body language, born of pure passion, could be misinterpreted as frustration with teammates. The gravitational pull of her stardom was so strong that it created tension. Some players struggled to find their role in her shadow. The result: multiple teammates transferred after Clark's freshman year. The atmosphere was untenable. Practices became delicate, with players unsure when to defer and when to assert themselves. Bluder could see the fracture lines forming. The very thing that made Clark extraordinary, her otherworldly confidence and will to win, was sowing discord. The media was starting to buzz about Iowa, but inside the locker room, the culture was fragile. Whispers about Clark being a difficult teammate began to circulate, a narrative that completely missed the mark but was fueled by the visible on-court tension. Bluder faced a coaching dilemma. How do you integrate a supernova into a galaxy of stars without burning them all up? The answer wouldn't be found in a playbook, but in a complete transformation of Clark herself. The crisis was a direct test of Bluder's initial promise. It was no longer about refining a jump shot. It was about fundamentally reshaping a basketball identity for the survival of the team. Lisa Bluder didn't see a problem to suppress. She saw a leader who needed to be built. She understood that Clark's will to win was her greatest asset, but it needed to be channeled to uplift, not unintentionally alienate. So Bluder embarked on a deliberate, meticulous project to coach the person, not just the player. She started holding weekly leadership meetings with Clark. They read books on leadership together, dissecting chapters, and applying the lessons to their team. Bluder even revisited Phil Jackson's Sacred Hoops, drawing parallels between coaching Clark and Jackson's experience with Michael Jordan. But the most powerful tool was film, not of opponents, but of Clark herself. Bluder would show Clark clips of her own reactions during games, the frustrated gestures, the emotional outbursts. You have to show it to them because they don't understand, Bluder explained. They're so into the moment that they don't understand how they're affecting other people. The film sessions were a mirror Clark couldn't ignore. She saw herself through her teammates' eyes for the first time. Bluder challenged her. Is this the leader you want to be? Is this how you want to make people feel? For a competitor like Clark, this was the ultimate challenge, to win the team, not just the game. She began a conscious, daily practice of vocal encouragement. She demanded the ball less in practice, setting screens to free others. She publicly credited teammates in post-game interviews, shifting the spotlight. This was the turning point. Clark, who always wanted to be her best, absorbed these lessons. She began to understand that her magnetism could be used for inclusion. She worked tirelessly to involve her teammates, to celebrate their successes as fiercely as her own. The change was profound. The same team that once bristled at her intensity became fiercely protective of her. When opponents or fans targeted Clark, her teammates would rally around her. The narrative flipped. Instead of a one-woman show, Iowa was becoming a symphony, with Clark as its passionate conductor. This hard-won culture, Bluder insists, wasn't created by Clark. It was the culture that attracted and ultimately nurtured her. And it was this fortified team, not just a singular star, that was about to take the entire sports world by storm. As Clark's game reached its zenith, so did the pandemonium surrounding her. This was no longer just a college basketball story. It was a full-blown cultural event. The statistics are staggering. She didn't just break the NCAA scoring record. She did it with a logo 3 in the first 3 minutes of a game, finishing with 49 points that night. She became must-see TV, with her Elite 8 game in 2024 drawing 12.3 million viewers, the largest audience for a women's college basketball game in history. Iowa sold out every home game and nearly every road game, with ticket prices hitting unprecedented levels. Her name became a moniker, fused into one like the great quarterbacks, Caitlin Clark. Little girls lined up for hours, not just to see a game, but to see her. Celebrities from Stephen Curry to Patrick Mahomes took notice, with Curry praising her deserved confidence, and Mahomes predicting she would dominate the WNBA. Analyst Debbie Antonelli called it Clarkonomics, the singular economic and social force she represented. Airports filled with fans when her team traveled. Opposing arenas sold out months in advance, with fans often cheering for her even as she dismantled their home team. The demand was so intense that fake tickets and security concerns became part of the routine. But within this whirlwind, Lisa Bluder watched closely. She saw the pressure that comes when your every move is dissected, when you carry the hopes of a burgeoning sport on your 21-year-old shoulders. Fran McCaffrey, Iowa's men's coach, acknowledged it. The pressure that puts on an athlete is not easy. Former record holder Kelsey Plum urged the media to show her love outside of her performance, understanding the emotional toll. Bluder's role was evolving in real time. She was no longer just a tactician or a leadership coach. She was now a buffer, a protector, trying to shield her star from the very spotlight she was creating. She managed media requests, controlled locker room access, and became the primary deflector for criticism, all to create a pocket of normalcy for Clark. The cheers of millions were deafening, but for Clark, the loudest voice was often the one in her own head, pushing for an impossible perfection. The weight wasn't just from expectations. It was from knowing that an entire sport's growth seemed to rest on her performance every single night. The transition from college goddess to WNBA rookie was, by Clark's own admission, a brutal wake-up call, and her comments revealed a shocking truth about the environment she'd just left behind. In a candid interview, Clark stated that college basketball did not prepare her for the professional game's IQ and physicality. Professional players and professional coaches are a lot smarter, she said. Looking back at her college film, she found it almost like concerning how teams guarded her, noting a lack of consistent doubles, traps, and physicality. She attributed this to a fundamental simplicity in the college game, saying, "You have to simplify it for girls at that age." This wasn't an insult. It was an observation of a systemic gap. Her words exposed a paradox. At Iowa, under Bluder, she had been developed as a leader and a winner. But the overall competitive landscape of college basketball, through no fault of her own or Bluder's, had a ceiling. She was so far ahead of that ceiling that it potentially created bad habits. The Caitlin Clark problem for opponents in college was her unguardable talent. The problem for Clark was that she wasn't being guarded at a professional level, leaving her unprepared for the sophisticated, physical defenses of the WNBA, where veterans study your every tendency and exploit the slightest weakness. This reality check provides critical context for Bluder's coaching challenge. She wasn't just managing an elite talent, she was managing a talent so elite that the competition around her couldn't provide a consistent challenge. How do you coach someone who is playing chess while everyone else is learning checkers? Bluder's solution in college was to focus on what she could control: Clark's mentality, her leadership, and the team's culture. She built a fortress of support and expectation around Clark, knowing the external challenges on the court were often insufficient. In practice, Bluder's staff had to simulate the defensive pressure Clark rarely saw in games, a nearly impossible task. This foresight may have saved Clark's college career from frustration, but it also highlights the immense loneliness of her greatness, a loneliness that only her coach truly saw. It was a 4-year preparation for a game she wouldn't truly play until she left Iowa. Caitlin Clark's final game at Iowa ended without a national championship. But to measure her legacy by a single ring is to completely miss the point. Her legacy is etched in the transformed landscape of the sport itself. She didn't just play basketball. She became the ultimate gateway drug for women's sports. A record 292,456 fans attended the early rounds of the NCAA tournament the year she left. A massive spike fueled by the curiosity she generated. She captivated the casual fan, the non-sports fan, and created a new generation of devotees. Coaches across the country now point to her as proof that a charismatic star can drive unprecedented revenue and attention, changing recruiting and marketing forever. Lisa Bluder, who retired as the winningest coach in Big Ten history after Clark's departure, watched this unfold as the ultimate architect. Her legacy is inextricably linked to Clark's, but it stands on its own. She proved that a strong, player-centric culture isn't threatened by a superstar. It's what allows a superstar to truly flourish. She demonstrated that coaching generational talent isn't about installing complex plays, but about managing psychology, fostering humility, and building a family. When Clark was drafted into the WNBA, she didn't go alone. She brought her Iowa teammates with her, gifting them shoes and headphones. A final, tangible symbol of the inclusive leader Bluder helped her become. Their partnership became a blueprint, the transcendent talent, and the coach who provided the emotional architecture to sustain it. In the end, the story of Lisa Bluder and Caitlin Clark is the story of a perfect, turbulent, and revolutionary partnership. It was about a coach who had the courage to critique a prodigy and the wisdom to protect a person. It was about a player who had the humility to accept the critique and the grace to bear a burden no athlete of her age ever had. Bluder didn't create Clark's magic, but she provided the structure, the guidance, and the emotional safe harbor that allowed that magic to shine at its most brilliant, without burning out from within. She didn't just coach an uncoachable player, she helped an impossible talent discover her own humanity. And in doing so, they changed the game forever. If this deep dive into the real relationship behind the headlines surprised you, or made you see Caitlin Clark's journey in a new light, let us know in the comments below. What's the most shocking part of this coaching saga to you? And don't forget to like and subscribe for more untold stories from the world of sports. The truth behind the legacy is always more fascinating than the highlight reel.